Hey guys, this is Carrie, and in this video we're going to be designing a rock, paper, scissors app. So we're going to go to REPL.it and I'll make a new REPL. We're going to stick with the same programming languages. Yep. Stick with the same programming languages and name it something like rock, paper, scissors. We'll create our REPL. And so we're going to be coding this one from the start. And I think my focus for this video is going to be to get the HTML correct so that we have, the basic items on the page, and skip over the styling, kind of come back to that at the end. Styling can be a bit of a time sink for me where I can get kind of sucked into that and spend too much time doing the styling. All right, so thinking about the HTML for our web page here, we're going to make sure that when we're adding stuff to the body of our website document that we leave the script tag at the bottom. We want to load all of the items on the page before we load the script tag so that the script tag has access to those items that they've been created by the time we reach the script tag. So I usually like to start with an H1. Let's call this rock, paper, scissors. H2, we've been doing like something like a web app built by Carrie. Next up, thinking about it, let's see. We've got this, then we'll have, maybe we'll have like a series of buttons here. We'll say like something like choose your move, a series of buttons. So that would be like an H3, choose your move. And then thinking about the buttons, maybe we'll have a rock button, a button for scissors, and then a button for paper. Let's see how this is looking. Okay, perfect. So then they can choose their move. All right, thinking about the next part, maybe we'll have another H3, I don't know, current game, maybe something like that, where we can display some game text. I'm going to change this to title case for choose your move, where all of them are uppercase. And then after this, we'll have like a paragraph, and it will say something like, I don't know, if you click paper, maybe we'll have paper versus scissors. Maybe then we can have a result, and the paragraph here, it would be like, let me just show you what this is looking like. So the current game, I'm just putting some example text here. This is obviously going to change based on what we click. The result here, then if we did paper and the computer did scissors, it would be computer wins. And maybe the score would also be interesting to keep track of. Sorry, I'm going to add a colon there as well, just for consistency. All right, so I'll add a score. Oh, score. We already have the score. 0 to, I don't know, 0, 0, like that maybe. All right, cool. So this seems like the basic structure of our web app. We've got all of the information that we're going to need, right? We've got rock, paper, scissors. Oh, gosh, did I have the order of those wrong? It's rock, paper, scissors. What am I thinking about? All right, so rock, paper, scissors says shoot. Cool, awesome. Current game could be paper versus scissors. The result would be computer wins. The score is 0-0. Sorry, I just actually have to do a mental check here. And I think now we're ready to start thinking about our JavaScript. Of course, we could move on to the style here if we wanted to take a style first approach. But knowing my habits where style is the hardest part for me, I'm going to focus on the JavaScript. So here we go. The first thing that we're going to do in the JavaScript, just like always, is select all of the items that we're going to be interacting with. I'm going to save the buttons for last here because I'm going to use a new thing that I've never shown you guys with the buttons. So thinking about the other things we're going to interact with, we'll need to be able to update the current game text. we'll need to be able to update the result, and we'll need to be able to update the scores. So maybe what we could do here is, let's go back to the HTML and distinguish these paragraphs from each other by giving them IDs. So current game, I don't know, do we use this spacing or do we use camel case? Okay, I'll do it like that, current game like that, where the G means the start of a new word this time. That's called camel case because this looks like a camel bump or a camel hump, where each new word gets its own space. This could be a result paragraph, and then this could be score paragraph. Okay, cool. Oops, sorry. Score paragraph. Awesome. So let current game equal, oh, this is the style page, sorry about that, script page. Let current game equal document.query selector. I'm gonna slide this over so we can see the thing with the ID of current game. Two really similar lines of code to get those other paragraphs. So here we go. This one is going to be, result paragraph. Copy and paste because the ID matches. The next one, this is going to be score paragraph. Score paragraph. Cool. Okay. Oh, and then the buttons. All right, so for the buttons, what we're going to do is actually select the buttons as a group of buttons. So instead of selecting a single button, rock, paper, or scissors, we'll select the whole group here. So let buttons equal document.query selector. And as I type this in, you'll see that there's a query selector option that we've used many times before, but then there's also this option query selector all. And this is useful for when you want to select a group of objects using a selector. So here, since they all are button type objects or button type elements, we can select all of them by saying select all of the buttons. And that's really important that you have this word all here, document.query selector all, because that will give you all the buttons. Cool. And this is a bit of a preview for our next unit where we're going to talk about working with groups of objects a lot because it's useful to work with groups of objects. So let's see. Oh, in addition to doing this selection, maybe we want to initialize some variables. So some of the variables that we might need to initialize would be let player score equal 0 to start, and let's let the computer score equal 0 to start. Cool. All right. So now what we need to do is we need to think about the actual gameplay itself. So I think the gameplay is going to begin when we click a button. So the next thing that we're going to do is program the gameplay. And of course, these little green text things that start with a double slash, these are called comments. These are not actually read by the computer. They're just for us to read to make it clearer. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our buttons, and we want to add an event listener to each of those buttons. So what we're going to do is we're going to say buttons dot, and this is really a preview for next unit, so sorry if this is a little bit new, but buttons dot for each. And what we're going to do is we're going to take each button and we're going to turn that into button.addEventListener. Oops, button.addEventListener. And the event type is going to be a click event. And then the function that we're going to run to start is going to be, let's just say, console.log clicked. Buttons.forEach. Okay, so take a button, take each button, and then add to that button the event listener. So it's going to go through each of the buttons, and then for each of them, it's going to say, take that button and add an event listener to that button. It should be a click event. And then the function that we run should be console.log clicked. So I'm going to open up my console, view, developer, JavaScript console. Oh, that's a really big console. Let's refresh the page. Okay, cool. I'm doing a refresh here, Command R. And then rock clicked, paper clicked, scissors clicked. Awesome. So we know that it's working. This is probably the hardest line of code in the whole thing, but it's really from next unit because we're applying something to each of the buttons. That's kind of this groups of objects type branch that JavaScript that we're going into in the next unit. All right, so I'm going to leave that console.log there because I like kind of seeing where we got up to. Next, I'm going to think about how do I get the player move? Well, the player move is going to be whatever the text is of the button that we clicked. So let me see if this works. Let player move equal button dot inner HTML, and then we'll do a console.log from the player move. So let me test this to see if it works. I did a Command R here, so you have the most updated code. Refresh, rock, paper, scissors. So I want to check each of them. All right, so what's happening here is we're logging that we clicked it, and then we're saying let the player move equal the button that we clicked, let it equal the inner HTML. And remember, the inner HTML, that's the text that appears inside of the HTML tags. So rock, paper, and scissors, the text happens to also be the moves. So we're taking advantage of that and creating a player move that's equal to the text inside of the button. All right, next up we need to get our computer move. And how do we want our computer to behave? Well, we probably want our computer to pick randomly. If the computer always wins against the player, it won't be very fun. Maybe that would be a fun extension to this, is to design one that always wins against the player. And that would just be a different mechanic for picking the computer move. But if we're picking it randomly, that kind of reminds me of the 8-ball. So I'm going to maybe open up that 8-ball REPL and just take a look at how we did that. So 21 days ago, wow, that's a long time. This might not be as fresh in our memory as I thought it would be. So thinking about the mechanics of the 8-ball, what we did was we generated random numbers, like 1 through 4 here, and then each of those random numbers corresponded to a possible answer. I think what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing. So in order to generate the random buttons, we had to use this function, generate random number. So I'm going to take that, and I'm going to put it at the very top of our code, paste it in here. If you don't have your Magic 8-ball complete, that function's also available in the cheat sheet down here, generate random. And then we're going to do the exact same thing that we did with the Magic 8-ball. So what we'll do is we'll say, once we click on the button, let's generate a random number. And that random number, since the computer has 3 possibilities, should be 1 through 3. Then we can make our if and else if block, and it's actually pretty perfect right here. So I'm just going to copy and paste the first 3 from here. Oh, no, I'm struggling to remember where I'm going. Okay, rock, paper, scissors. Copy and paste the first 3 here, and then here's a good setup. If it's 1, we'll do something. If it's 2, we'll do something else. And maybe I'll change this one to a catch-all, so I'll delete the condition and the if and just leave it as an else. So if anything else happens, it will generate the third one. Now it's important here, if I go through these if, else if, and else statements, I could do let computer move equal, so if it's 1, then the computer move would be rock, etc. The problem is if we define a variable using let within our code block here, then this variable, computer move, will only exist inside of this if statement. And we're going to want to use that computer move after all of these statements run. And so the way that we can do this is we can actually tell the computer, hey, create a spot in your memory called computer move. And usually when we do this, we would say, let computer move equals some set value like rock. But what we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, create that space in your memory. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use the if statements not to create the space in the memory and define it, but just to solely define it here. So we're saying create the space in your memory, and that happens outside of these conditional statements. That will mean that because the space in memory exists outside of these code blocks, we'll have access to it after these code blocks run. So let computer move. We create the space in memory. And then we're going to use these to define what goes there. Computer move equals rock. Computer move equals scissors. Computer move, oh gosh, why do I keep doing this? Paper is the second one. Paper. And scissors. Cool. All right, so let's do a console.log computer move. So I clicked it, I picked rock, and the computer picked paper. If I pick rock again, I clicked it, I picked rock, the computer picked rock. All right, things are going really well here. Now what we need to do is we need to start taking this text that's appearing in the console and have it start appearing on our web page. So we want to make the current game first. So after all of this runs, I'm going to keep all of my console logs. I'm going to say make responses appear on the page. And to do that, we'll say, okay, well the first thing we need to do is we need to update the current game text. So the current game text should say, it should be current game. And we'll make the text inside of that, the inner HTML, equal to whatever the player move was, plus verse, plus whatever the computer move was. And that should have the same structure as this. It was paper versus scissors, but now it should be plugging in the player move values, which is what we get from which button we click, and then the computer move, which is the thing that's randomly generated. And I put spaces around the verse here because I want spaces around it. So here we go now. If we click rock, we get rock versus scissors, paper versus paper, paper versus scissors, rock versus scissors, scissors versus rock. Awesome. Now we need our result. So what we can do here is we can think about our result statements. So I'm not going to program all of these. I'm going to leave the rest to, I'm going to do a couple of them and then leave the rest up to you to figure out. So let's see. Let's do the first one maybe in my mind. If the player move is rock, and I have to make sure that the cases match here because the player move will always be rock with a capital R since that was the inner HTML text of the button. And the computer moves, the way I've written it, will always be first letter capitalized. I have to be careful about that. So if the player move is rock and the computer move is rock, then let's see. Oh, this is a compound conditional statement. I wanted to draw attention to that. It's kind of cool that we have our end statement because if both of these things are true, then the result will be a tie. So we'll go, what was the result variable? It was result paragraph. So I'll copy that, paste that here, and then we'll say the inner HTML of that, the text that appears inside of the HTML tags, inside of the paragraph tags, that's going to equal tie game. And that's the only thing that has to happen if we tie, which is cool. Now I'm going to think, okay, that's not the only option, right? We could have an else if. So what if the player move was still rock and the computer move was not rock anymore, but now rock, paper, scissors. Let's make it the next one, paper. Then my result paragraph dot inner HTML, if the player is rock and the computer is paper, then the computer computer wins! Exclamation point, because paper beats rock. And then let's see, not only do we have to do that, we also have to update the scores. So we created these score variables up here. So when the computer wins, I'm going to say let the computer score, and I don't have to use let here because we already created this variable up here. We're just changing the value. The computer score is going to be whatever the old computer score was plus one more, because it's one more game. So if the computer score is 5, the new computer score will be the old computer score, 5 plus 1, 6. And then we'll have to change the score here, score paragraph, dot inner HTML is equal to player score. Then I have a little dash here, some spaces and a dash. Oops. Right, we're adding these strings. So player score plus that plus the computer score. Okay? And then the last option for rock, I'm just going to finish up rock here, would be else if the player move was rock and the computer move is scissors, then that would be, well, rock beats scissors, so the player would win here. The player score would have to go up by 1, so player score is equal to player score plus 1. And then the score paragraph would update to the same thing with the condition that it would be the player score that actually changed instead of the computer score. So here I've got all of the possibilities, it looks like, for rock. Let's see what happens. So I can play this game now. Rock versus paper, the computer wins and the score updates. Rock versus scissors, rock beats scissors, the player wins. It's 1-1 now. Rock versus scissors again, I win again. I'm gonna see if I can get a tie. Rock versus paper, computer wins. Rock versus scissors. Rock versus rock, tie game. So I've tested all of the possibilities here. The scores didn't change when we got the tie. Things are looking good. So your job is going to be next to use else-if statements to continue building this out and program the functionality for the result and score for the paper and scissors buttons. So those will work. It will update the current game, but you'll notice that they don't update the result or the score yet. You'll have to figure out how to do that in order to successfully complete this project. So I'm going to stop the video here, and maybe we'll make a next video on styling. Hope you found it helpful, and it's a cool use of compound conditional statements. Bye guys.